For those of you who have finished The Last of Us Part 2, I have an interesting question. Is it possible to make The Last of Us 2 better with some minor adjustments?
Wasn't as good.
You see, I don't personally think that The Last of Us 2 is a bad game. I was expecting so, after seeing this, and especially this.
Joe.
But I finished the game realizing that the thing which sparked the hate is not the storyline itself, but rather the disappointed expectation of how the story was told, the storytelling. In the game, the story goes like this. Joel quickly reminds players of what has happened in the previous game. We see a happy flashback of Ellie with Joel, a happy grown-up Ellie without Joel, then we are introduced to Abby, who at this point emits zero level of relatability. The moment with the golf club, and afterwards we need to follow the revengeful arc of Ellie for 3 consecutive days, mixed with flashbacks, and then all of a sudden these 3 days all over again, but from another perspective, the perspective of Abby, and finally once both storylines merge together in a fight between 2 main characters, we come to the ending with the happy married life of Dina and Ellie. Oh, wait, no, the actual ending with Ellie's revenge on Abby. Oh, my mistake again. The actual ending is with forgiving Abby? What? Wait, and now we're back at farm again? Just give me the ending already. To clearly understand why this arrangement doesn't work as intended, let's remember Star Wars The Last Jedi. When the movie was just released, it caused a similar hate in the internet from fans, causing multiple petitions and scandals. The thing is though, there were a lot of good themes behind each character arc, including, is saving one life worth the price if it leads to the end of others? Are there really any bad and good characters at all? Does it matter to which side we belong if they're all the same at the end of the day? Can we forgive ourselves and others even after going too far? But there were 2 main things why the storytelling didn't work out. Firstly, making characters likable could have worked better if these characters were not introduced in a way that brings resentment.
My neck.
The most intense part of Ellie's story is clearly when Joel dies, but then her story has written itself into a corner. Why is that so? Well, there are only 2 ways how to end the story. Ellie commits the revenge, or she forgives Abby. Because although the game obviously tries to show the dark side of Ellie, she is clearly not the antagonist of the game, so we shouldn't expect her to become evil. Moreover, if the premise of the story is about willing to revenge someone, predictably it won't happen. Which means that now we need to play predictably knowing that what we're doing will lead to a predictable ending with forgiveness. But then it becomes even more predictable, because Abby's story repeats the events of the same 3 days in Seattle, so we already know that these guys will die. Since our first impression of Abby was hate, therefore rather than trying to understand her, players will think that this is a way to redeem her and make a likable character, when it's clearly to show that she has her reasons too, and now she pays for them. Her story is a way to show another perspective of Joel and Ellie's cruel decisions, which doesn't work because it's shown in the form of flashbacks. We do not actively follow her story, actions and character, and do not grow the affection towards her because we are merely the viewers, the passively watching audience of a story that forcingly tries to make us like her. And I need to clarify an important thing here. I'm not saying that Abby is not relatable or very bad. I'm saying that rather than naturally be with her in the present moment, we just take a glance at her selective past memories. It's the same as if the first game has started with Joel killing everybody in the hospital, including Marlene, which, for example, we already knew from the prequel game as a beloved character, and then for the rest of the game we're watching the flashback of while Joel did that. Sure, most people would still like him, but it would have been much harder to grow the affection for him. But as I was playing the game, I asked myself, what if the story was told differently? It's clear that the main point of the story lies in the arc of Abby, so why not start the game and focus on her perspective? What if we didn't know the premise of the game until the very end? So I decided to rearrange the story of The Last of Us 2 and see what would happen as a result. In case of Ellie, the game puts her flashbacks as if it should have been a twist that Ellie finds out the truth about Joel, predictably. But the true purpose of these flashbacks is to show that the reason why Ellie wants to get the revenge is not because of Joel's death, but specifically the fact that she never had a chance to forgive him. For her, the revenge quest was a way to fulfill this hole that she has already created before among them. So imagine starting the game with the flashback of Abby and then Ellie. This simple change would immediately set up the foundation of their motives at the same time. Ellie's denial to believe Joel and Abby's father's death, which is way better than going around Jackson for 2 hours with no apparent reason in the original game.
Yep.
Also, in the original script, the scenes where Joel reiterates the main events of the previous game and Abby loses her father are told passively, letting us know what happens. But when you combine these moments together in the beginning, the focus shifts from what happens to why it is important and what will be the result of it.
You're supposed to take her to the fireflies and walk away. Jesus.
Doctor?
What are you doing? This is our future. Think of all the lives we'll save.
What do you do?
Is he still in the fucking building?
Abby.
No!
Abby, don't look.
Dad! Dad! No! No!
I saved her.
This intro actively establishes the conflict for the rest of the game, the consequences for the choice we made in the previous game. One of the reasons why the game feels so boring is a violation of the main story writing rule: show, don't tell.
I told her.
For the first 2 hours of the gameplay, all the characters talk about the events that we, players, don't even understand.
She kissed me.
Which triggered Seth to call you a not so nice word.
Yep.
Then Joel decked him,
More of a push.
and then you got mad at Joel. That part confused me.
What happened last night? Why does Ellie like Dina and vice versa? Who is this guy? What happened between Ellie and Joel? You don't need to answer all of them immediately, but at least show them with this scene that we've already seen in the trailer anyways. It would improve the chemical connection between Ellie and Dina, establish the mentor and ward relationship between Joel and Jesse,
Your old man really laid into me today.
and also show us that something is wrong between Ellie and Joel, instead of random phrases between dialogues.
I don't need your f***ing help, Joel.
That part confused me.
A lot of people already mentioned that interchanging the story of Ellie and Abby should help the story. Now, imagine if we played all these 3 days without fully understanding what happened to Joel. Surely it still would have been annoying, considering that we wouldn't understand what is really going on. But on another side, something interesting happens. Without context, Ellie's actions become extremely cruel, because we believe that Abby tries to be a good person, but she loses everything and everyone. Suddenly, the game turns Ellie from a good character to evil intentionally. And it might sound crazy, but it might have been a better choice after all. Wait, before you put a dislike, listen. The scene in the theater would make sense from this perspective, because we assume that we're trying to revenge evil Ellie, who killed Abby's friends, which is why we're playing as Abby. And you presumably think that it's the worst idea because no one would want to see Ellie being as an antagonist. But here is a twist. After the flash forward to the life of Ellie and Dina, we suddenly see this.
Come on, little dude.
At these points, two things happen. Firstly, players start disliking Abby and willing to revenge her, but the difference is that now we already know what she went through. In the original game, most players didn't feel anything despite hate, but in this rearranged version, this hate would have been mixed with understanding and ambiguity. Exactly what Naughty Dogs wanted us to feel. We shouldn't love Abby, we might hate her, we might want to avenge her, but at least we can understand her motives, and that she made a huge mistake by taking the path of revenge, and she paid for that and is going to pay even more. Secondly, Ellie redeems herself. To be honest, The Last of Us 2 caused me to hate Ellie more than Abby, because she couldn't deal with her feelings after a year, but if the moment with Joel was shown here, then I would understand the importance of this final arc, which seems redundant in the original story, let's be honest. Additionally, this way we don't need to play as Abby once we know the truth, so the only moment when we are forced to do something against our will is that one, not half of the game.
Hey, thanks for giving me the room last night.
And finally, I believe we should also remove this part at all. Just imagine that now we are filled with hate as Ellie and are ready to face Abby. But when we do, we see this. Weak Abby, who was tortured for more than a year, since this moment never happened. You understand that she already paid for revenge for Joel, and nothing will be changed from killing her now. She lost everybody and everything, and she probably wouldn't even mind of dying if Lev wasn't around. Ellie realizes that the only way to forgive Joel and be forgiven by him and forgive herself is to leave her alive. But then what about the finale? Well, actually I believe you shouldn't change it. Ellie still abandoned Dina for revenge and didn't deserve the happy ending. And don't get me wrong, I love Ellie. She is one of my favorite characters. What people forget is that the refusal from the revenge shouldn't be rewarded and treated as an action that turns you into an angel basically. She still made bad things too, but the difference is that she didn't go as far as Abby. She still might return to Jackson, and she was able to forgive herself for her spoiled relationship with Joel. Maybe she wasn't rewarded with a literal happy ending, but she was rewarded spiritually by finally being able to move on from now on, leaving Joel and her self-hatred behind. Clearly, these rearrangements will not fix the game's story entirely, and there are still many things that should be changed or polished. But it was interesting to see how drastically the story might or might not change if it's told in a different order. What do you think about that, and in which order would you tell the story? Share your ideas with all of us in the comments. I will really enjoy reading all your thoughts. By the way, 2 weeks ago I released my own version of The Last of Us in 2D for mobile devices. So check out this video as well. Please subscribe to the channel to support us with the growth. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next week.